We are back. We are GrokTALK. We'd like to remind you to visit cnht.org. The nice people who let us use their room. Give them a donation, see what they do. Start a taxpayer group in your area. Even if you're not in New Hampshire, we encourage you to do that. GraniteGrok.com is a product of GraniteGrok.com. GrokTALK is a product of GraniteGrok.com.
Turn my mic
Oh,
on.
no, I'm not gonna. I'm not done yet. Conservative blog site, blah, blah, blah.
I will
Save
say
me.
instead. GrokTALK, a production of GraniteGrok.com, New Hampshire's leading conservative and libertarian
derailed my
blog
train
site.
of thought.
Yes, you got the blah blah blahs.
I got the blah, blah, blahs today.
So,
For you. All the chairs are full, we want to tell you. Everybody's here.
Max, our first guest, has now arrived from the seacoast. Took a little bit to get here. It is a long road.
It's a haul.
It is. You came in through 101.
I came up 95 to 101. I was surprised to encounter some of the worst traffic I've seen on 95. It was just a sudden huge traffic jam.
Oh, you know why?
Race.
Well, you got the people going out to the seacoast, but you got the Loudon race going on this weekend. At the track in Loudon.
Oh,
NASCAR.
I'd forgotten about that.
That would explain.
They
That
were
would
going-
explain the extra half hour.
You can't forget the NASCAR.
They're going north on 95, but then they're going west on 107, and that was packed, and that was backed up 2 lanes wide all
Yep,
the way.
107 leads into 106, which goes right
It's
past the
also
track.
a great tourist weekend. It's beautiful out here in New Hampshire today. There doesn't appear to be
Finally.
any rain. The weather is not too hot. It's not too cold. It's baby bear. So there's a lot of traffic coming in from all points, east, west, and south, to go up north. And Loudon obviously is the biggest attraction right now, but people are heading for the lakes. There's mountains. There were trailers with boats, so
Oh,
It's
yeah.
baby bear weather. That's
It's
dangerously
baby bear
close
weather,
to
yes.
being warm and fuzzy.
it's warm and fuzzy.
Yeah.
Without any taxpayer support.
So let's finish up with Joe, and then we're going to switch over to you, Max. So, do you think you're going to be able to have an impact? I mean, I really do hope so, because I do believe that the traditional American message has failed to get to the students' ears, and you look at how miserable, all I have to bring up is Jay Leno and his jaywalking videos, and almost everybody understands what I mean by that, even if he is picking on the worst of the worst. I mean, it's horrible to see how little these people have it. With the advent of the internet, you see all kinds of people going out and asking rather basic questions of the general populace, a lot of times the younger people, ask them what I consider to be very basic stuff. Name the president and the vice president. Can you name 2 of the Supreme Court justices? Can you name 1 of your congressmen? Can you name 1 of your senators? What is the Bill of Rights? What is the First Amendment? Forget about the
What did
others.
Snooki name her baby?
Yeah, that you get. You'll get that answer. You'll get the pop culture, which in the long scheme means not much. I mean, that's really what the founders were hoping for. We could just concentrate on life. But you have to have that modicum of civics understanding and history. And I blame our educational system for not even wanting to include it. In fact, the goal seems to be to absolutely not teach our children their foundations.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And by the way, I'm pleased to know I can't name Snooki's baby.
Who is Snoopy?
Awesome answer. Woo! Yeah. Okay.
No, you
There we
bring
go.
up you bring up a couple of good points that are hot buttons for me, and that's first of all, it's got to get back to the parents. This country was founded on an educational system where parents hooked up with teachers and were able to teach their children, and we have abdicated that to the NEA in essence. And so what we need to do is we need to get vigilant and understand what is being taught to our children today, because if we don't understand where we come from, they'll have no idea how to get to where we need to go. So that's that piece. Am I hopeful? I have a daughter who's in college right now. She's going to be a sophomore this year, and we had lunch at an Olive Garden one day, and she said, Dad, I think the Democrats may have something with this idea of the 99%ers and the 1%ers. And I said, well, let's think about that a minute. I said, Jennifer Lopez started off as a 99%er. Mark Cuban, 99%er. Steve Jobs, 99%er. What they did, Lady Gaga, 99%er. Just go on and on. the only reason why there are 1%ers today, which I'd like to create 2%ers, is to bring more of those people here because of that bigger pie theory of the American dream. And a woman from across the room there, I guess, was eavesdropping, and she came over and she said, you know, I never heard it presented that way. And so my hope is I could visit the other colleges in New Hampshire, and I hope they could say, I never heard it presented that way.
So there's a way to pitch this as how do you become a 1%er, right?
Right.
I mean, did you start out that way, which means you're part of the aristocracy? Or did you start out like the rest of us and there was a way for you to get there from here?
Excellent point, Steve. So that brings me back to the way liberals work. America traditionally doesn't have an aristocracy, and everybody can work their way up in a meritocracy. These people that Joe mentioned either had an idea or they marketed themselves, as in Lady Gaga or J-Lo.
They had a dream.
They had a dream. They figured out how to make their act sufficiently unique and promote it sufficiently well that they became rich. The problem that we have with liberals is that their tendency is to want to cement their position as an aristocracy, as a ruling class, and pull up the ladder after themselves, whether it's the minimum wage, whether it's prevailing wage laws, whether it's non-right to work, all the things that make it harder for the poor and the minorities to get a step on the ladder. J-Lo, a minority. Mark Cuban, a minority. And these guys, these gals, are fabulously wealthy and good on them.
Or I'll pitch another person, a legal immigrant who just passed away, that I think all of us have heard of, or at least of his company, Amar Bose, who just passed away at the age of 83, who formed the Bose Corporation, whose sons are now very heavily involved in the company. I have owned Bose equipment for years and years and years. Thankfully, I had their headphones when I used to travel a lot, cross country all the time, and was able to arrive at my destination because of their anti-noise canceling headsets without a headache from the low-level vibration that you get when you fly. Yeah, there's another person who basically educated themselves, was an MIT professor after graduating from MIT. You know, just one of those really bright bulbs that would outshine all of us here in this room, and I don't say that with any disparaging remark. He was a brilliant guy, and he took that and said, I can do stuff with this knowledge, and he created a whole industry in a lot of cases and reformed that industry of first loudspeakers, and with very innovative designs. The Bose 901 was one of the things to have back when I was at that age. Totally unlike any other speaker system that had ever been seen before, which was mostly just wooden boxes. And he made his fortune. He made, as Joe, you were saying, his American dream. I will do things differently, and it turned out that when he did, he made lots of money doing it.
Only in America.
And Joe was referring to the number of businesses earlier that were all started in garages, and I've actually seen the Hewlett-Packard garage. Fascinating place.
I'm actually building a garage so I can do that.
So who's your sidekick going to be?
I don't know yet. It could be somebody in this room.
Well,
You never know. I just got my permits and I'm going to get my garage built.
well, funny you bring up permits, because Joe, you're talking about the American dream. I mentioned Home Depot, and I can't remember the founder's name, who said,
Bernie Marcus.
Thank you. Has said it's almost impossible for people to succeed like that anymore because of how much stuff you have to go through from the government civil servants, which I am now starting to call our civil masters, because at every turn and step you have to obey and satisfy their requirements before you can take care of your own. Steve, how much did these permits cost you?
Actually, it was $160.
Yep.
We were renting a garage and mudroom and a 3-season/4-season porch.
And how many more permits are you going to have to get?
None. But
No plumbing, no electrical.
no, I'm all set. I'm not real. I don't have to do any plumbing. The heating's already covered because we're only running one duct into one room, and the electrical. They just need the electrician to sign the paperwork we already have.
No building inspectors.
They probably will come by. I mean, they did have, had their forms. They said you need to fill these out. They really weren't that bad. They had some drawings, and you had to make sure that you explained how big your structures were going to be and what you were going to make them out of. And they were pretty nice. They were actually very nice. My wife had to go down and do this during the week because I wasn't there, but I had to fill in you know, what we were using, what kind of lumber, you know, list of materials. I didn't need a full bill of materials. I just wanted to know, you know, what are you using? What are you making? Primarily, they were concerned about what the roof was going to be made out of. You know, what kind of lumber we're going to use, because they don't want the roof to collapse on the next owner, which is fine. You know, it wasn't a big deal. It took me a couple minutes to write it all down. And they were very excited, and the foundation, of course. So we told them, you know, we're doing 4 to 8 foot frost walls on all new existing structures with 16-inch footers, and they're like, awesome. That was it. We're done.
Yeah, and I contrast that with somebody who wanted to open up an art store up in Wolfboro. And after almost a year and $20,000 later, they had yet to open up that art store because they were still going through all of the permitting and variances and everything else. It's like the government almost didn't want them to start a free enterprise store.
On that note, real quick, for people who are paying attention to the IRS scandal, I was just reading today, yesterday, that there are still conservative groups on the list who have been waiting for 3 years to get their letter of intent or commitment, whatever it's called. They're still waiting. They are still waiting.
Yes.
And I have to
In
say,
the middle of the scandal.
yeah, I have to say the better approach is to say we don't need no stinking government permission, and just say, you know what, we'll pay the damn taxes, and we won't register anything, and won't send them any information except the total amount of money.
But the problem is, though, is that then the donors cannot take that off their taxes, so the government's got you twice over. And that's part of the deal, going back to, Joe, your original intent. And don't worry, Max, we're going to be talking to you in just a couple of minutes.
I wanted to say something about those permits, though. I'm not originally from New Hampshire. You can probably tell by my, I guess you guys say I have an accent.
Not really.
But in King County, Washington, people spent more time and more money getting permits to put a deck on their home or put a fence up, and the fence could only be so high, and you know, if the fence had to be below 42 inches, and then there's an OSHA regulation saying that it has to be at least 44 inches, so you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. You've got, if it's a home-based business and you've got one employee, the fence has to be this high, and so one federal agency is telling you have to do something that the county is telling you that you can't.
That's true of immigration in Arizona as well. They had one law that said you had to use E-Verify to verify employment, and then another law that said if you used E-Verify, you were discriminating.
Yes.
The whole nation's full of this crap.
Yeah, and that, you know, it is kind of the running joke around here that every day you live, whether you like it or not, they could pin 4 or 5 laws that you've broken no matter what, and most of them carry federal penalties. We've become over-criminalized, over-lawyered, and that's kind of going back to, can we reach the American dream? Are we almost, I mean, you mentioned a couple of luminaries that are of the younger set, but is that more of the exception versus the rule? I know that we're talking here about expanding that pie, but has government, in all of its good intentions, which tend to be soft handcuffed, have we so handcuffed the coming up generation that it's almost impossible to achieve what we have achieved? And they say, well, it's the economy, it's this, it's that. Very few people will point to government, except for conservatives, and say, you're making it too hard.
It would be a problem if the rank and file, if the members of the people who live on Elm Street and Main Street do not understand that their government is taking their freedoms away from them. And as I relate that to a policy on the table, society abhors a vacuum. There's a vacuum of leadership in the White House, and there's a vacuum of leadership in the Congress. We have simple solutions to our problems. They are simple, but they are not easy. The first thing we have to do to unleash this thing is to create what I called, some people are calling, the grand bargain. And we cannot piecemeal our way out of this so the free enterprise system can do what it needs to do. I look at the free enterprise system as a thoroughbred. And we have two big cement blocks holding this thoroughbred down. One is no fiscal policy in Congress, over-regulation, okay? We have over-regulation because of the financial crisis that we had. People regulated, Frank Dodd, that kind of thing, regulated out of anger and out of fear. Regulation doesn't work unless it's there to protect people and have capital flow properly. If we have a grand bargain, where we basically have a set rate to cut the expenses of government, say 2% a year over the next 5 to 6 years, get the corporate tax rate down to 25%, level the playing field, take away all the loopholes, and the other part, I wanted to promote increasing the taxes, which may sound something to a lot of terrible conservatives, over $1 million, but we do need more revenue, and we're all Americans. But that got knocked down to $450,000, so that piece is already in place. And then the last thing we need to do, and Warren Buffett said it so clearly about a month ago, he said, when I negotiate a contract, he said, I don't do it out on the negotiating a labor contract, I don't do it out on the floor. What I do is I go into a meeting and we get all the parties together, have a special interest, we work out what's best for the employees and what's best for the company, and we come to a deal, and then we take it to the membership. We are trying to negotiate Medicare and Social Security reform on the campaign trail. It will never work because there's too much demagoguery that will not get to the solution. And what we need to do is we need to sit down in a committee room and have the parties come in there and say, look, we have a math problem. We have a math problem in that the demographics, okay, we used to have 80 million baby boomers supporting 30 million retirees. Now we have 30 million workers supporting 80 million baby boomers. The math, I'm an investment real estate broker, I understand demographics, math does not work. Okay, but if you sit there and say, well, it's not really a math problem because that's too insensitive, we need to take care of the people. Well, we can take care of the people we've made promises to, but we've got to go back to the colleges and these young people and say, look, I would like to have Medicare and Social Security be for you, but if we're a bankrupt country, it's not going to be there. So we need to make some changes, work together, so that you, when you retire, will have Social Security and Medicare.
And that's what I call the 100% of nothing situation. We keep promising these people that we're going to pay it out, and eventually the whole thing collapses.
Right.
Whether it's a union pension, whether it's the company that's going down the tubes because the union agreed, or whether it's the country that's going down the tubes. You're milking the cow. You say we're going to have these fantastic benefits, and you're never going to vote to reduce your benefits. So, okay, do you want like 80% of something or 100% of nothing? Because you cannot have it all the way it's currently structured. It will collapse, and soon.
Yeah, and I think part of that has gone very quickly to the idea that the trust fund, if it ever existed, the money was always being pulled out of and being filled up with IOUs that could only be
There's a piece of paper in there that says IOU.
Yeah, which
the Social Security. Yeah.
And these departments could only pay back through higher taxes. But I am going to disagree with you on one part, because what works in the private sector of getting all of the quote-unquote stakeholders, and I've come to loathe that word, that works in the private sector because it's your money. I want them debating this on the campaign trail. I want them to debate this in their regular sessions in the House and in the Senate, because everything's out in the open. This whole gang of 8 on the immigration bill, where everything was negotiated in the back rooms where we couldn't see it, and they brought in the special interests and the lobbyists to help write this bill. I'm sorry, that has done an injustice to the American people. The one thing that GrokTALK does stand for is an open and transparent government, and when you're doing the backroom deals, you cut the American people out. Now, the vast majority of them may not be paying attention. Well, that makes no difference whatsoever, because people like us do pay attention, and we call out our senators and our congressmen when we see them doing badly, and we can't do that when they're behind closed doors. But
that's a valid point, Skip, and that is the downside. But if you look at the Markey campaign down in Massachusetts this last time, I mean, he had no solutions to our problems. All he came out and said is that the Republican candidate was in favor of raising the retirement age and take away your benefits, and that really wasn't accurate. But when you have that kind of demagoguery, we don't solve the problem.
Well, you're correct, and that's what we talk about all the time. We're going to bribe you with your own money after we've taken our chunk out of it from taking it from you in the first place. But we're going to have you back to talk about this some more.
Love to come back.
And I appreciate you, Joe Mandolo, for coming in and talking to us. We can certainly say that we just barely scratched the surface of this, and I really want to know how your efforts and outreach to the college community come out as you start bringing out questions. Oh, what do you think about this? And they go, what? And I would really like to do that. Now, normally I would love to be able to take a little bit of a break here if we could, and be able to switch subjects and go to Max Abramson, because you're here to talk to us about a court case that you're in. Another flip side of our ever growing government, when perhaps things haven't gone so well and now you have to go fight for your rights.
We could just talk for another 6 minutes and then go into the last segment.
I wonder if I could say something about the healthcare.
Yep.
Oh, sure.
Sure.
Harry Brown, who was the Libertarian candidate for president a couple of times, would always make the point that, you know, this was back in '96 and 2000. He would always say, you know, before government got into healthcare with the FDA's 10 to 18-year-long approval process, the occupational licensing, healthcare mandates, obviously Obamacare mandates, all the state regulations, insurance mandates, 44 insurance mandates in New Hampshire. Healthcare used to be cheap before they started regulating it to death and taxing it to death, and 14 years of college to become an anesthesiologist, and you're left with hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loans and a couple $100,000 a year for medical malpractice insurance. So you have the lawyers and regulators and politicians getting into it, driving the cost through the roof, and it's now, 15 or 16% of GDP or GNP is going just to healthcare costs. And you have politicians in Congress, and all they're talking about is how do you divide up the costs? Well, if the costs keep going up, if you pay for it through higher taxes, indirect taxes, lost wages, higher consumer prices, premiums, co-pays, the costs are still going up, and it still become unaffordable. As long as the costs continue to go up, then we're not going to be able to get healthcare coverage for...
And as long as government remains involved, the cost will go up if there's no competitive market anymore.
There will be that phrase that we will hear more and more. We started to hear that at the beginning of the Tea Party. What I think we're going to start hearing about it more and more is, who is John Galt? Which I'm seeing some smiles around the table. They understand that's from Atlas Shrugged.
I'm trying to figure out how I can live on sufficiently less that I don't have to
You're right.
keep paying the government so much.
Right, and I know that, to your point, Max, that a lot of doctors have said it's not worth the expense anymore. I'm going to retire. I'm not going to live as well as what I had hoped, but I can live more well, if I can use that phrase, than most people. So I'm just going to throw all of my folks out of their jobs. I'm going to retire, or I'm going to cut severely way back, or even as some have done, gone to concierge doctorhood, which you will pay me cash directly. I will have a much smaller number of people for patients, and I'm not dealing with insurance or anything else, and the government gets cut out, and they've basically gone John Galt. They've gone Dr. Galt.
There's a whole culture of people in Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, and Southern California. They have no medical insurance. When they have anything dental work, if they have any medical need, they go see their American doctor by going across the border to New Mexico, get the work done, and pay cash, and then come back to the U.S. They're not going to deal with the insurance and the government regulations and everything else.
But that doesn't work if you're forced to buy the insurance or forced to pay a fine, even if you don't want it. And Skip mentioned concierge, but there's also the walk-in clinics, which are a booming business. And those are, effectively, if you had an unregulated market, the walk-in clinic plus a catastrophic insurance that covered the really big events would probably be the cheapest way to take care of your health. But the government doesn't want us to use those.
Yeah, health insurance has become something of the past. All we have now is health insurance is just another name for who's going to pay for the healthcare pie.
The point that I wanted to make, and we're running out of time, so I'm going to make it. Just going to jump right in there. As a father with a family, there's 5 of us, I can tell you that my single biggest healthcare expense is insurance. The cost of the insurance is more probably than what we get out of it in the long run. Because most of my kids are healthy.
And you're young.
And we're all, I'll be 50 this year, but even still, we don't go to the doctor that much. When something happens, you stick a Band-Aid on it, you figure it out, maybe it goes away. You wait, you don't just jump. I have a neighbor, if anything happens, she goes to the doctor. And these are the people who are driving up the costs. And this particular, that's the problem. The problem is regulation. In New Hampshire, we had the Shaheen bill, drove all the competition away. Now we have 3 providers pretty much, and we're going to be down to 1 pretty soon. And that's a monopoly, and it's expensive.
Well, I've got news for you, Steve. You're a target of the Obama administration and their regulation.
I knew that.
Well, yes, not just because of what we do here, but because the dirty secret of Obamacare is that they have to force the young and healthy that aren't paying big bucks right now, or even if they're covered or buying cheap insurance, they got to force these folks to pay an unreasonably large share in order to support.
On top of their really large student loan debt.
Yes, and it's come to the point now with the Obama nods. HHS Secretary Sebelius has just kicked off a $150 million ad campaign to reach the young people who really don't need the kind of insurance she wants to put upon them, to the point where I just love this idea of how they're going to go to a bourbon festival or several bourbon festivals in Kentucky, because that's where the young people go. So first we'll get them drunk, and then we'll hook them onto Obamacare. What a country!
I was drinking and I woke up and I had Obamacare.
Wait a minute, Skip. A few centuries ago, in a land far, far away, if you went drinking, you would suddenly find the king's shilling in the bottom of your mug, and then when your hangover wore off, you'd be in a ship at sea going to war.
Yeah.
Same thing.
Shanghai,
Same thing.
Dragoon.
Yep.
But anyways, we've got music to Dragoon.
We have music, and I'm going to start the music and right now. There you go. Here comes the music. Hello,
Where?
music. Music. Right. There it is. It's creeping in. See, we're supposed to talk over the music on our way out, and I guess I'll just keep talking until the music gets louder, and then we'll just break. I'll start turning microphones off.
You had us in suspense, Steve.
I did. Joe, thanks for coming. Max is going to be with us in the next half hour. We're going to do some seat shuffling, so everybody has the best quality audio equipment GrokTALK can provide here on GrokTALK, brought to you by GrokTALK.com. We'll be right back.
If you would like to stick around,
Yeah, I'd like to hear
by
the
all means.
conversation.
Yeah.
Why don't you switch seats with Max?
Yeah,
You'll be talking a little more on the slightly better headset.
Yeah, we're as donations come in, we replace our equipment. And,
If we get time, I want to touch on libertarianism versus anarchism, because one of you said earlier, about small groups and cooperation and the fond imagination that it'll all just work.
that was Steve.
Yeah, so libertarianism believes in, I think, still believes in small government. Anarchism believes in cooperation and capitalism without any government. And the finest legal minds, including the rude one, seem to agree that anarchism doesn't work in the long run.
Yeah.
The rude one who is no longer with us. And we still have to have that debate, by the way. We need to post up the collected scribbling.
I know. I finally found it. I do have to put it up, but we got to concentrate on Max at this next level.
So, on to Max.
I've been arguing for several years.
Yeah, we're not on just yet.
I've been arguing for several years.
Yeah, you'll have to put those headsets on.
I give away with the criminal.
You don't have to
justice
yet.
system because
Just commercial music.
Well,
Get the
we
music.
need to do away with the federal criminalization of every aspect of life.
And that is the 911 recording. Ah, so did you want to play this?
Yeah, it's the first 2 minutes that are important.
Okay.
I can do a quick setup for it if you want, a quick intro for it if you want.
Is that something that you could play?
We're going to try.
Okay.
I get my little bay door to open. Get that civilization. Get in there.
It's 6 minutes and 37 seconds, but it's only the first maybe minute or so that's important.
Now we gotta wait because my time was off. I'll just edit it out.
Okay.
Grok TV.